Section 8 of A General History of the Pirates. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A General History of the Pirates by Charles Johnson. Chapter 6 of Captain Charles Vane and his crew. Charles Vane was one of those who stole away the silver which the Spaniards had fished up from the wrecks of the galleons in the Gulf of Florida, and was at Providence, as has before been hinted, when Governor Rogers arrived there with 2 men of war. All the pirates who were found at this colony of rogues submitted and received certificates of their pardon, except Captain Vane and his crew, who, as soon as they saw the men of war enter, slipped their cable, set fire to a prize they had in the harbour, and sailed out with their piratical colours flying, firing at one of the men of war as they went off. 2 days after they went out, they met with a sloop belonging to Barbados, which they made prize of, and kept the vessel for their own use, putting aboard 25 hands, with one Yates to command them. A day or 2 afterwards, they fell in with a small interloping trader, with a quantity of Spanish pieces of 8 aboard, bound into Providence, called the John and Elizabeth, which they also took along with them. With these 2 sloops, Vane went to a small island and cleaned, where they shared their booty, spent some time in a riotous manner of living, as is the custom of pirates. The latter end of May, 1718, they sailed, and being in want of provisions, they beat up for the Windward Islands, and met with a Spanish sloop bound from Puerto Rico to the Havana, which they burnt, and stowed the Spaniards in a boat, and left them to get to the island by the light of their vessel. But steering between St. Christopher's and Anguilla, they fell in with a brigantine and a sloop, with the cargo they wanted, from whom they got provisions for sea store. Some time after this, standing to the northward in the track the old England ships take in their voyage to the American colonies, they took several ships and vessels, which they plundered of what they thought fit, and let them pass. The latter end of August, Vane with his consort Yates came off South Carolina, and took a ship belonging to Ipswich, one Coggeshall commander, laden with logwood, which was thought convenient enough for their own business, and therefore ordered their prisoners to work, and throw all the lading overboard. But when they had more than half cleared the ship, the whim changed, and then they would not have her, so Coggeshall had his ship again, and he was suffered to pursue his voyage home. In this cruise the rover took several other ships and vessels, particularly a sloop from Barbados, Dill, master, a small ship from Antigua, Cock, master, a sloop belonging to Curaçao, Richards, master, and a large brigantine, Captain Thompson from Guinea, with 90-odd negroes aboard. The pirates plundered them all and let them go, putting the negroes out of the brigantine, aboard of Yates' vessel, by which means they came back again to the right owners. For Captain Vane, having always treated his consort with very little respect, assuming a superiority over Yates and his small crew, and regarding the vessel but as a tender to his own, gave them a disgust, who thought themselves as good pirates, and as great rogues as the best of them. So they caballed together, and resolved to take the first opportunity to leave the company, and accept of his Majesty's pardon, or set up for themselves, either of which they thought more honourable than to be servants to the former, and the putting aboard so many negroes where they found so few hands to take care of them, still aggravated the matter, though they thought fit to conceal or stifle their resentments at that time. A day or 2 afterwards, the pirates lying off at anchor, Yates in the evening slipped his cable, and put his vessel under sail, standing into the shore, which when Vane saw, he was highly provoked, and got his sloop under sail to chase his consort, who he plainly perceived had a mind to have no further affairs with him. Vane's brigantine sailing best, he gained ground of Yates, and who would certainly have come up with him, had he had a little longer run for it. But just as he got over the bar, when Vane came within gunshot of him, he fired a broadside at his old friend, which did him no damage, and so took his leave. Yates came into North Edisto River, about 10 leagues southward of Charlestown, and sent an express to the governor to know if he and his comrades might have the benefit of his Majesty's pardon, and they would surrender themselves to his mercy with the sloops and negroes, which being granted, they all came up and received certificates, and Captain Thompson, from whom the negroes were taken, had them restored to him for the use of his owners. Vane cruised some time off the bar in hopes to catch Yates at his coming out again, but therein he was disappointed. However, he unfortunately for them took 2 ships from Charlestown bound home to England. It happened that just at this time 2 sloops well manned and armed were equipped to go after a pirate, which the governor of South Carolina was informed lay then in Cape Fear River, a cleaning. But Colonel Rhett, who commanded the sloops, meeting with one of the ships that Vane had plundered, going back over the bar for such necessaries as had been taken from her, and she giving the colonel an account of her being taken by the pirate Vane, and also that some of her men, while they were prisoners on board of him, had heard the pirates say they should clean in one of the rivers to the southward, he altered his first design, and instead of standing to the northward in pursuit of the pirate in Cape Fear River, he turns to the southward after Vane, who had ordered such reports to be given out on purpose to send any force that should come after him upon a wrong scent. For in reality he stood away to the northward, so that the pursuit proved to be the contrary way. Colonel Rhett's speaking with this ship was the most unlucky thing that could have happened, because it turned him out of the road which in all probability would have brought him into the company of Vane, as well as of the pirate he went after, and so they might have been both destroyed. Whereas, by the colonel's going a different way, he not only lost the opportunity of meeting with one, but if the other had not been infatuated, to lie 6 weeks together at Cape Fear, he would have missed of him likewise. However, the colonel, having searched the rivers and inlets as directed for several days without success, at length sailed in prosecution of his first design, and met with the pirate accordingly, whom he fought and took, as has been before spoken of in the history of Major Bonnet. Captain Vane went into an inlet to the northward, where he met with Captain Thatch, or Teach, otherwise called Blackbeard, whom he saluted, when he found who he was, with his great guns, loaded with shot, as is the custom among pirates when they meet, which are fired wide, or up into the air. Blackbeard answered the salute in the same manner, and mutual civilities passed for some days, when about the beginning of October Vane took leave and sailed further to the northward. On the 23rd of October, off of Long Island, he took a small brigantine, bound from Jamaica to Salem in New England, John Shattuck master, and a little sloop. They rifled the brigantine and sent her away. From hence they resolved on a cruise between Cape Mise and Cape Nicholas, where they spent some time, without seeing or speaking with any vessel, till the latter end of November, when they fell upon a ship which 'twas expected would have struck as soon as their black colours were hoisted. But instead of that she discharged a broadside upon the pirate and hoisted colours which showed her to be a French man of war. Vane desired to have nothing further to say to her, but trimmed his sails and stood away from the Frenchmen. But Monsieur, having a mind to be better informed who he was, set all his sails and crowded after him. During this chase the pirates were divided in their resolutions what to do. Vane, the captain, was for making off as fast as he could, alleging the man of war was too strong to cope with. But one John Rackham, who was an officer that had a kind of check upon the captain, rose up in defence of a contrary opinion, saying that though she had more guns and a greater weight of metal, they might board her, and then the best boys would carry the day. Rackham was well seconded, and the majority was for boarding, but Vane urged that it was too rash and desperate an enterprise, the man of war appearing to be twice their force, and that their brigantine might be sunk by her before they could reach on board. The mate, one Robert Deal, was of Vane's opinion, as were about 15 more, and all the rest joined with Rackham, the quartermaster. At length the captain made use of his power to determine this dispute, which in these cases is absolute and uncontrollable by their own laws, viz. in fighting, chasing, or being chased. In all other matters whatsoever he is governed by a majority. So the brigantine having the heels, as they termed it, of the Frenchman, she came clear off. But the next day the captain's behaviour was obliged to stand the test of a vote, and a resolution passed against his honour and dignity, branding him with the name of coward, deposing him from the command, and turning him out of the company with marks of infamy, and with him went all those who did not vote for boarding the French man of war. They had with them a small sloop that had been taken by them some time before, which they gave to Vane and the discarded members, and that they might be in a condition to provide for themselves by their own honest endeavours, they let them have a sufficient quantity of provisions and ammunition along with them. John Rackham was voted captain of the brigantine in Vane's room, and proceeded towards the Caribbee Islands, where we must leave him till we have finished our story of Charles Vane. The sloop sailed for the Bay of Honduras, and Vane and his group put her into as good a condition as they could by the way, to follow the old trade. They cruised 2 or 3 days off the northwest part of Jamaica and took a sloop and 2 pettiagas, and all the men entered with them. The sloop they kept, and Robert Deal went captain of her. On the 16th of December the 2 sloops came into the bay, where they found only one at an anchor, called the Pearl of Jamaica, Captain Charles Rowling, master, who got under sail at the sight of them. But the pirate sloops coming near Rowling, and showing no colours, he gave them a gun or 2, whereupon they hoisted the black flag, and fired 3 guns each at the Pearl. She struck, and the pirates took possession, and carried her away to a small island called Barnaco, and there they cleaned, meeting in the way with a sloop from Jamaica, Captain Walden, commander, going down to the bay, which they also made prize of. In February, Vane sailed from Barnaco in order for a cruise, but some days after he was out, a violent tornado overtook him, which separated him from his consort, and after 2 days' distress, threw his sloop upon a small uninhabited island near the Bay of Honduras, where she was staved to pieces, and most of her men drowned. Vane himself was saved, but reduced to great straits for want of necessaries, having no opportunity to get anything from the wreck. He lived here some weeks, and was subsisted chiefly by fishermen, who frequented the island with small craft from the main to catch turtles, etc. While Vane was upon this island, a ship put in from Jamaica for water, the captain of which, one Holford, an old buccaneer, happened to be Vane's acquaintance. He thought this a good opportunity to get off, and accordingly applied to his old friend. But he absolutely refused him, saying to him, "Charles, I shan't trust you aboard my ship unless I carry you a prisoner, for I shall have you caballing with my men, knock me on the head, and run away with my ship a pirating." Vane made all the protestations of honour in the world to him, but it seems Captain Holford was too intimately acquainted with him to repose any confidence at all in his words or oaths. He told him he might easily find a way to get off if he had a mind to it. "I am now going down the bay," says he, "and shall return hither in about a month, and if I find you upon the island when I come back, I'll carry you to Jamaica and hang you. Which way can I get away?" Answers Vane, "Are there not fishermen's dories upon the beach? Can't you take one of them?" Replies Holford, "What," says Vane, "would you have me steal a dory then?" "Do you make it a matter of conscience," said Holford, "to steal a dory, when you have been a common robber and pirate, stealing ships and cargoes, and plundering all mankind that fell in your way? Stay there, and be damned if you're so squeamish," and so left him. After Captain Holford's departure, another ship put in to the same island in her way home for water. None of those company knowing Vane, he easily passed upon them for another man, and so was shipped for the voyage. One would be apt to think that Vane was now pretty safe, and likely to escape the fate which his crimes had merited. But here a cross accident happened that ruined all. Holford, returning from the bay, was met with by this ship. The captains being very well acquainted together, Holford was invited to dine aboard of him, which he did, and as he passed along to the cabin, he chanced to cast his eye down the hold, and there saw Charles Vane at work. He immediately spoke to the captain, saying, "Do you know who you've got aboard here?" "Why," says he, "I've shipped a man at such an island, who was cast away in a trading sloop. He seems to be a brisk hand." "I tell you," says Captain Holford, "it is Vane, the notorious pirate." "If it be him," replies the other, "I won't keep him." "Why then," says Holford, "I'll send and take him aboard, and surrender him at Jamaica." Which being agreed to, Captain Holford, as soon as he returned to his ship, sent his boat with his mate armed, who coming to Vane showed him a pistol and told him he was his prisoner, which none opposing, he was brought aboard and put in irons. And when Captain Holford arrived at Jamaica, he delivered his old acquaintance into the hands of justice, at which place he was tried, convicted, and executed, as was, some time before, Vane's consort, Robert Deal, brought thither by one of the men of war. End of section 8. Read by Sandra. Near Montreal, 2023.